I remember the days when my world seemed solid and predictable. Before everything unraveled, life had a rhythm I found comforting. Work, a quiet home, and weekends spent tuning up my car or wandering through countryside roads. I wasn't searching for change or excitement, just content with the simplicity I had carved out for myself. Looking back now, those were the last moments of innocence, the calm before the storm that would upend everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and betrayal. It wasn't that I had an idyllic life, but it was mine. Every choice I made felt deliberate, shaping a path I thought would stretch on for years. The people around me, family, friends, and even acquaintances, seemed to fit into the narrative I had built. But as life often does, it had other plans. Change crept in quietly, carried by the unexpected and unwanted. That's where my story begins, with a single choice that led to a series of revelations, each more staggering than the last. After a long day at work, I found myself at my favorite bar, sitting on a stool and slowly sipping the single beer I allowed myself. It was my usual routine, a way to pass the time before the bowling alley next door opened. Across the room, a stunning dark-haired woman caught my attention as she occasionally glanced in my direction, seemingly trying to make eye contact. A few moments later, the bartender, Sam, placed another beer in front of me. He explained that the drink wasn't from the house, but had been sent over by the woman at the end of the bar. I politely declined, asking Sam to either return her money, add it to my tab, or dispose of it altogether. Soon after, the woman approached and took the seat next to me. She had striking features, a pretty face and bright, expressive eyes. While I didn't want to come across as rude, I let her know that her presence next to me wasn't entirely welcome. She seemed unfazed, however, and pointed out my refusal of the drink. It wasn't a matter of disliking her, I thought to myself, but rather a desire to keep my life simple and uncomplicated. I wasn't in the mood for entanglements, though I knew she would likely find someone else at the bar more suitable, someone younger, wealthier, or better looking. What caught me off guard was her insistence that she was interested in me, not just anyone. Skeptical, I decided to lay out my assumptions about her. She appeared to be in her late 20s, educated and professionally successful. She was attractive and knew it, but likely fixated on small imperfections that no one else noticed. Her presence at the bar suggested that she was either navigating life post-divorce or looking to stray from a stagnant marriage. Conservative on the surface, she probably harbored a wilder side that she hadn't fully embraced. It seemed likely that her former or current partner was significantly older, and something about me reminded her of that person. As I shared my observations, her reaction confirmed that I wasn't far off. Her story began to unfold. She revealed that her husband had passed away over a year earlier, and only recently had she stopped wearing her wedding ring. Their relationship had grown cold before his illness, but she had stayed by his side, caring for him out of respect until the end. After his death, even though she had felt held back by the marriage, she found it difficult to seek a new relationship. She explained that seeing me had reminded her of her first love, the boyfriend she had left behind to marry her husband. Now she was trying to find her footing in a new career, uncertain but hopeful about the future. She shifted the conversation, directing her curiosity toward me. She commented on my apparent choice to remain unattached despite my age, and asked if I ever felt the need for companionship. She suspected that I wasn't as detached as I tried to appear, believing instead that I was someone who had been hurt deeply and was now shielding myself from further pain. It was time, I thought, to share a bit of my own story. I had once been a romantic, or perhaps just a fool, as I preferred to think of it. A year ago, I had been married to the woman of my dreams, but that dream had unraveled in front of the entire country, leaving me exposed as a naive man who had given too much of himself. I explained how I met Ellie 6 years earlier at a party. From the moment I saw her, everything in my life shifted. Love at first sight wasn't something I had believed in until that moment. She had fiery red hair and green eyes so vivid and expressive that they revealed her every thought and mood. To me, she was the most beautiful woman in the world, and I fell for her completely. Within a year, we were married. I worked as an engineer for a manufacturing company that produced car parts, while Ellie transitioned from part-time waitressing to being a homemaker. We had plans to enjoy our time together before starting a family, a decision partly influenced by the turbulent marriage of her sister and brother-in-law. They had rushed into marriage after an unplanned pregnancy, and their constant arguments served as a cautionary tale for us. Ellie's family wasn't large, Aside from a few cousins, her closest ties were her sister and brother-in-law who lived in a nearby trailer park. Ellie had lived with them until our marriage, and I suspected they were relieved when she moved out, as it freed up space in their already cramped home. Despite this, they still frequently visited us to use our pool. Ellie and her sister Sally were inseparable. Whenever I couldn't find Ellie at home, I knew she was likely with Sally at the trailer park. Their bond was unbreakable, and it often felt like a part of Ellie's heart never left that place. As I took another sip of my beer, I continued the story. Most evenings when I got home from work, Ellie would be in the living room with her sister Sally and Sally's husband Billy. The three of them shared a deep appreciation for what they considered a quintessential American pastime: daytime trash TV. Shows like Jerry Springer, Judge Judy, The People's Court, and, of course, Maury were their favorites. While I couldn't relate to their fascination, being preoccupied with my own responsibilities, I was glad Ellie had something that kept her entertained and occupied when we were apart. By the time I got home, she typically had dinner ready, and after we ate, we'd spend time together, either relaxing at home or going out. We both enjoyed exploring the countryside, marveling at the scenery. Ellie especially loved soaking in the views, and for me, there was nothing better than hitting the road in my beloved car. That car was my pride and joy, a gleaming Arctic white 2008 Mustang GTCS convertible. For those unfamiliar, it's a California Special GT convertible, customized to perfection. Ellie used to joke that the car and she were in a constant battle for my attention, and she wasn't entirely wrong. Cruising in it with her by my side felt like a dream. The car had a cherry bomb exhaust system that sounded incredible, even if it didn't exactly comply with California's emission standards. It also featured cross-drilled and slotted rotors, Arctic white brake calipers to match the body, and tinted windows and headlights. To this day, I still adore that car. Interestingly, none of these moments would have unfolded without Sally's presence. I had no ill feelings toward Sally. In fact, I admired her for her genuine heart. She bore a resemblance to Ellie, but was a few years older, slightly taller, and carried a bit more weight. Unlike Ellie's fiery red hair, Sally was blonde. On a few occasions, Sally made advances toward me, but I dismissed them as harmless tests to see if I would remain loyal to her sister. I always turned her down, and afterward, things seemed to improve in our interactions. Around a year ago, Sally and Billy's marriage hit a rough patch. Their arguments became more frequent, lasting longer and affecting everyone around them. What started as typical bickering escalated into something more serious. Eventually, Sally decided to take drastic action. Instead of seeking help from a marriage counselor, she reached out to Maury, the TV show, and was invited to appear in an episode about cheating spouses. Sally had arranged for Billy to take a lie detector test on national television to uncover whether he'd been unfaithful. Her suspicions ran deep. She believed Billy had cheated with multiple women, including a teenager from their trailer park who was rumored to be pregnant with his child. Billy vehemently denied everything, claiming Sally's suspicions stemmed from her insecurities about getting older. The girl in question, just 19 years old, was also invited to the show to confront him. The whole situation felt absurd to me, almost like a circus. Though I was convinced Billy was guilty, I kept my thoughts to myself and focused on avoiding the drama. I even promised to record the episode so we could all watch it together later. That evening, Ellie caught me off guard with an unexpected announcement. She wanted to go to Connecticut to be there for the show's taping. She felt it was her duty to support Sally, especially if Billy turned out to be guilty or if things became chaotic. For Ellie, the trip wasn't just about helping her sister. It was an opportunity to see her favorite show live. A dream come true. However, since she wasn't directly involved in the episode, the network wouldn't cover her travel expenses or accommodations. I reassured her that we could afford to send her. Then she dropped another surprise. She didn't plan to go alone. She insisted I take time off work to accompany her, arguing that she wasn't comfortable leaving me home while she traveled out of state. Although she said she trusted me, she admitted she didn't want me tempted by clubs or other distractions during her absence. She believed that too much free time was exactly what had gotten Billy into trouble. I half-jokingly suggested that perhaps Billy just needed a job, but Ellie brushed off the comment with a laugh. She reminded me that in our 5 years of marriage, we'd always made time for fun, unless one of us was sick or injured. She had no intention of changing that now. A few days later, we all boarded a flight to Stamford, Connecticut for the show taping. At the airport, a production assistant met us and escorted us to our hotel. While the production team headed off to prepare for the next day's filming, Ellie and I settled into our room. Ellie playfully flopped onto the bed, clearly trying to grab my attention as I unpacked. Her gaze lingered on me, her expression mischievous. But before the moment could evolve, Sally burst into the room unannounced. Ellie, visibly annoyed, asked why Sally wasn't at the studio. Sally explained that the producers were focused on Billy since he was scheduled to take a lie detector test. She'd only been required to answer a few questions and film a short clip about her suspicions. The production team, she added bitterly, seemed more interested in the woman Billy was accused of cheating with than in her. Turning to Ellie, Sally asked the question that hung heavily between them. Did Ellie think Billy was really cheating? Ellie didn't respond directly but squeezed my hand, her silence betraying her true thoughts. It seemed clear that she believed Sally's suspicions were justified. Ellie reassured her sister, reminding her that no matter what happened, she wouldn't face it alone. She offered support, promising that if Sally and her kids needed a place to stay, our home was always open to them. Sally looked at me, then back at Ellie, remarking on how lucky Ellie was to have a husband she could trust. She doubted I'd ever betray Ellie the way Billy had likely betrayed her. Then, lowering her voice, Sally admitted a secret. Ellie cut her off with a knowing look, acknowledging that Sally had already tried to confirm Billy's fidelity in her own way. Despite her fears, Sally's love for Billy was evident, and she admitted she might forgive him, eventually, if he was willing to change. He'd need to stop cheating, find a job, and give their kids a better life than their cramped existence in the trailer. But she also confessed she wasn't sure she could live without him. Years together had created a bond that was hard to break, even in the face of betrayal. After Sally left the room, Ellie leaned into me, whispering how grateful she was for our relationship. She softly reminded me of her love and joked about how different we were from Sally and Billy. The contrast between their volatile relationship and our steady connection was stark. The next morning, we all gathered for breakfast before heading to the studio. Sally had clearly put effort into her appearance. Her hair and makeup were flawless, and she looked better than I'd ever seen her. Billy, in contrast, appeared exhausted and uneasy, his eyes fixed on Sally with a mix of guilt and fear, as though he genuinely dreaded losing her. The woman at the center of the scandal, a 19-year-old from their trailer park, wasn't with them. None of us expected her to show up, given the circumstances. A limo arrived to take us to the studio. Sally, Billy, and the teenager headed off in one car, while Ellie and I rode in another. The production facility turned out to be a large warehouse-like space with the show's sets positioned in the center. Around the main stage were dressing rooms, screening areas, conference rooms, and control booths. The space buzzed with activity as crew members wearing headsets rushed to adjust cameras, lighting, and sound equipment. Technicians monitored camera angles and audio levels from a recording booth at the back, while producers and security personnel moved in and out, managing the controlled chaos. Watching the show on television made it seem like filming only took a few minutes, but the reality was far different. I had assumed we'd be in and out of the studio within an hour or two, but we spent 3 hours waiting before they even started filming Sally's segment. Sally's story was the second of 3 being recorded that day. The first segment featured a teenage mother who accused her neighbor's husband, a Protestant minister, of fathering her child. The preacher denied the claim, insisting his faith and role as a man of God made it impossible for him to commit such a sin. His wife stood firmly by his side, attacking the girl's character and accusing her of being untrustworthy and immoral. As the segment unfolded, the minister's lies unraveled. He failed a lie detector test, and DNA results confirmed that he was in fact the baby's father. Chaos erupted on stage as the preacher's wife, furious and humiliated, turned her anger on both her husband and the young woman. Security had to intervene to break up the fight. The most striking moment came just before the reveal, as the preacher, visibly nervous, seemed to silently pray for divine intervention to alter the DNA results. His attempt to hold his wife's hand was met with a cold rejection, leaving him visibly shaken. Reverend Pritchard knew his world would collapse if the child was confirmed to be his. Both his marriage and his career would come to an abrupt end. His wife glared at him with piercing eyes, alternating her gaze between him and the girl. Meanwhile, the girl sat casually in her chair, seemingly unfazed. It was as though she accepted the immorality of her actions but felt at ease, knowing the truth would soon validate her claims. For her, confirmation of paternity meant legal grounds to demand child support, offering some respite from her otherwise difficult life. Under the glaring studio lights, an expectant silence filled the room as Maury addressed the paternity of 10-month-old Amber Marie. With calculated drama, He stretched the moment before delivering the verdict. "Reverend Pritchard," Maury finally announced, "you are the father." The disgraced pastor leapt from his seat and fled backstage, pursued by his wife's furious cries for a divorce. On stage, the young mother sprang to her feet, launching into a triumphant dance so provocative it could rival any professional performer's. The audience erupted in cheers, swept up in the chaos, and even I found myself chuckling at the absurdity of it all. Ellie nudged me sharply in the ribs, reminding me, in her own playful way, that she could easily outperform the celebratory moves of the young woman if she wanted. As the commotion subsided, Sally stepped onto the stage, taking a seat opposite Maury. She began recounting her 7-year relationship with Billy, during which they had 5 children together. She spoke openly about their struggles, describing life in a cramped trailer and Billy's chronic unemployment, though she emphasized her unwavering love for him. The crowd applauded her devotion, celebrating her resilience in sticking by her man through thick and thin. Sally went on to explain how things had taken a turn for the worse. Rumors of Billy's infidelity had begun circulating, with whispers that he had not only cheated on her but might have impregnated another woman from the trailer park. The audience groaned in disapproval, though no one seemed entirely shocked by the revelation. The studio screen then displayed Billy's pre-recorded interview. In the footage, he declared his loyalty to Sally and expressed his dismay at her distrust. He claimed that Sally and their children were his world and insisted that taking a lie detector test would signal a lack of faith in him, making him consider ending their marriage. The crowd responded with loud boos, though Sally's expression softened, revealing her conflicted feelings. She clearly loved Billy and wanted to believe in him, but she also wanted to hold him accountable. Divorce, however, was never truly on her mind. She only wanted to ensure he knew she wasn't naive. As the segment unfolded, Marilyn, the alleged mistress, made her entrance to a chorus of boos from the audience. She wasted no time detailing her encounters with Billy, claiming he had been involved with multiple women from the trailer park. She admitted she didn't love him, but was insistent that he find a job and begin providing child support for her child. According to her, Billy had promised her that he and Sally were heading for divorce. Marilyn claimed she was 2,000% sure that Billy was the father of her baby, a statement that left me baffled, given that 100% certainty should suffice in most situations. Her declaration brought Sally to tears, prompting Maury to console her while Ellie rushed on stage to comfort her sister. Eventually, Billy appeared, walking onto the set with visible reluctance. The audience's hostility was palpable as he made his way through a sea of angry faces. While Marilyn had drawn her share of criticism, Billy received far less sympathy. He sat down opposite Maury, who began questioning him about the accusations. Billy denied everything. He denied cheating, denied knowing Marilyn personally, and even reframed his unemployment as simply being between jobs. At one point, he referred to Marilyn as like free internet, a comment that triggered a new wave of outrage. Marilyn leapt from her seat, attempting to attack him, while Sally inexplicably stepped in to defend Billy. Chaos erupted as Ellie joined the fray to protect her sister, and security had to intervene to separate everyone. As the dust settled, Maury prepared to reveal the DNA results. The studio quieted, and Maury addressed the paternity of 3-month-old Stephen. "Billy," he declared, "you are not the father." Marilyn's reaction was immediate and dramatic. She screamed, insisted the test was wrong, and stormed off the stage in tears. Meanwhile, Billy, clearly relieved, broke into a celebratory dance that only further agitated the audience. But Maury wasn't finished. "We still have the results of the lie detector test," he announced, recapturing the crowd's attention. Maury revealed that when asked if he had ever been involved with Marilyn, Billy's denial was deemed a lie. In fact, the test indicated he had been with her more than 10 times. Billy tried to argue, but Maury continued, revealing that Billy had also lied about other infidelities, involving over 5 women and at least 50 separate incidents. The revelations pushed Sally over the edge. She jumped to her feet and delivered a punch to Billy's face so forceful that it echoed across the studio. Ellie quickly pulled her sister back to her seat as the stunned crowd watched the chaos unfold. For Ellie, the entire experience was surreal and exhilarating. Being on Maury was a dream come true, and I knew we'd have to record this episode once it aired. It was destined to become a staple in our home, replayed countless times as a cherished memory of her unexpected moment in the spotlight. Sally was sobbing uncontrollably, leaning on Ellie for support. Billy, overwhelmed, dropped his head into his hands, begging Maury to stop reading the results. The audience, however, demanded more. their voices rising in a collective outcry. Maury, seemingly unfazed by the raw emotions in the room, continued to methodically reveal the results, question by question. With each revelation, the tension escalated, pushing both Billy and Sally closer to the edge. The entire spectacle felt surreal. Despite my sympathy for Sally, I couldn't help but stifle a laugh at the absurdity of it all. Suddenly, Sally bolted upright, her face twisted with fury. She unleashed a torrent of accusations at Billy, her rage so intense that even Maury instinctively stepped back. The exact words were muted for the broadcast, but I had no doubt what she'd screamed. She wanted to know the identities of the women Billy had deemed more valuable than his own children. Sally's anger radiated through the studio. Ellie joined in, shouting insults at Billy, but his response shifted the air in the room. Without hesitation, Billy turned to Ellie and delivered the blow that would unravel everything. "Since we both know you were one of them," he said, his voice cutting through the chaos. Time seemed to freeze. The room fell silent, and the cameras quickly panned between Ellie and Sally, capturing their stunned faces. Ellie's horrified, "No!" echoed in slow motion, but her eyes betrayed the truth. She turned to me, her gaze pleading, but I didn't need further confirmation. Billy's words had already shattered everything. "If you don't believe me, ask your husband to take a lie detector test," Billy added. "They even asked me if I'd been with anyone in your family." Sally's shock turned to fury. She lunged at Ellie, hitting her as Ellie stood frozen, still searching for me in the audience. Without drawing attention, I slipped out of the studio. I wandered outside, flagged down a cab, and returned to the hotel. Back in the studio, Maury's producers seized the dramatic turn of events, canceling the next segment to focus on the explosive fallout between Sally, Ellie, and Billy. I later learned that Ellie repeatedly asked about my whereabouts, but staff assured her I was backstage, likely to prevent her from leaving or doing anything drastic. They called my phone and the hotel incessantly, but I ignored them. They wanted me to return to the studio and air my marriage's collapse for the cameras, but I refused. An hour later, I checked out of the hotel and headed to the airport. Although I wasn't supposed to leave for another 2 days, I managed to book an earlier flight. 90 minutes later, I was on a plane, leaving the chaos behind. While I made my escape, the drama continued at the studio. The production team convinced all three to return to the stage, much to the delight of the audience, who remained riveted by the spectacle. Sally declared she never wanted to see either Ellie or Billy again. Billy, now desperate, apologized profusely, likening himself to Tiger Woods and claiming he had a problem with women. Maury's counselors intervened, offering to enroll him in a support group for obsession. Incredibly, they persuaded Ellie to consider reconciling with Billy for the sake of her children. Sally, too, was eventually coaxed into forgiving Ellie. I wouldn't learn of any of this until a week later, by which time I no longer cared. Once I returned home, I immediately contacted a lawyer to start divorce proceedings. It was one of the hardest decisions I'd ever made, and I shed more tears than I care to admit. But it was necessary. Fortunately, we lived in a no-fault state, so proving infidelity wasn't required. Still, I kept the episode as evidence, a humiliating but definitive record of her betrayal. Eager for a quick resolution, I agreed to an even 50-50th split of our assets. Ellie would keep the house while I retained my future income in retirement. The plan seemed straightforward until it came time to serve her the papers. I arranged for the documents to be delivered at the airport, driven by the same morbid curiosity that compels people to watch car accidents. From a distance, my attorney and I watched as Ellie, upon receiving the papers, tore them to shreds in a fit of rage and attempted to attack the process server. Security had to intervene to subdue her. My lawyer turned to me, shaking his head. "She's unhinged," he muttered, suggesting a restraining order might be in order. I assured him it wasn't necessary. I'd temporarily moved into a hotel and was actively searching for a new home in another area. He warned me that my distinctive car, a bright Arctic white Mustang, might make me an easy target, but I had no intention of parting with it. Over the next few weeks, I found a modest new house, one devoid of the memories that haunted the old one. By the time I returned to work, I thought I was ready to move forward. But on my first day back, Ellie was waiting for me in the parking lot. She pleaded tearfully, begging for forgiveness and vowing to make things right. Her voice cracked as she confessed her love, insisting that Billy meant nothing to her. I didn't respond. I walked past her without a word, her cries fading into the background as I left her behind. I couldn't hold back anymore. Spinning around, I snapped, my frustration boiling over. "Don't say things you don't mean, Ellie. Billy must mean a lot to you. Because you've made it clear he's worth more than me. You've thrown away everything. My love, our marriage, the life we built together, the children we might have had, and the future we dreamed of. If he's so important to you, why don't you go back to him and enjoy whatever it is you have left? Don't come back here again. I don't want to see you. If you have anything to say, tell it to my lawyer. She looked at me with tear-filled eyes, her voice trembling. Ted, Sally forgave Billy. You heard her yourself back in the hotel room when you thought I was asleep. She told you she and Billy don't love each other like we do. He's cheated on her so many times with so many women, and yet she still forgave him. Can't you forgive me, just this once? I promise it will never happen again. I'll beg you if that's what it takes. You can't throw away 5 years of happiness over this. Fine, I said, my voice cold. Get on your knees. Without hesitation, she knelt before me, tears streaming down her face as people around us stared. Please, Ted, take me back. Don't divorce me. I love you, she pleaded. No, I said firmly, walking away into the building. That evening, I stayed late at work, trying to clear my mind. When I finally headed out to the parking lot, I spotted an old pickup parked next to my Mustang. As I approached, I realized Sally was sitting inside. She rolled down her window and called out to me. Ted, I know how much she's hurt you, Sally began. Believe me, no one understands better than I do. Billy's done it to me more times than I can count, and this is the last time I'm letting it slide. My kids deserve better than a father who cheats and sleeps around the neighborhood. But even with all the pain he's caused, I still took him back. Not because I'm a fool, but because I know, in his own messed up way, he loves me. It's not the kind of love you have for Ellie. It's not as deep or pure, but it's still something. And love, even in its imperfect forms, is rare. Billy's not the best man, not even close, but he's mine. And when I think of all the lonely people out there who'd give anything for someone, even someone like him, it helps me forgive him. People make mistakes, Ted. We're all flawed. And when you love someone, really love them, you have to let go of their imperfections sometimes. Less than a month ago, you would have done anything for my sister. I can't believe you've forgotten that already. She paused, then added, You've invested so much in this marriage. Are you really ready to throw it all away? What happened to, for better or worse, until death do us part? I'll keep it brief, but there are 3 things I want you to think about. First, Ellie loves you. She knows she messed up and would do anything to fix it. You're her world, Ted. Second, she wasn't having a real affair. This is Billy we're talking about. It wasn't love. It wasn't about replacing you. It was just a stupid, meaningless lapse in judgment. Lastly, whether it matters to you or not, at least talk to her. Let her apologize. I think it would do you both good. Sally gave me a quick hug before driving off. That night, I replayed everything in my mind. The good times, the happiness Ellie and I had shared before her betrayal. I realized I didn't even know why she'd done what she did. If I wasn't going to give her another chance, it didn't matter. But if there was any hope of saving our marriage, I needed answers. The next morning, I called Sally. Billy answered the phone, and I immediately hung up. Moments later, my phone rang back. Ted, were you calling me? Ellie asked, her voice bright with hope. Well, I began, but she cut me off. Whatever it takes to fix this, I'll do it, she blurted out. I know I screwed up, but I'll never do it again. Just give me another chance. I wasn't calling for you, I said bluntly. I wanted to talk to Sally. Oh, her tone shifted, disappointment heavy in her voice. Ted, I'm sorry. I miss you so much. You don't know how empty I feel without you. I'm sure Billy will help you fill that void, I retorted coldly. Look, I didn't call for you. Where's Sally? She's not here, Ellie replied. She's at the school, talking to one of her kids' teachers. And when you say my house, you mean our house. It hasn't felt like home since you left. Why do you need to talk to Sally? I wanted to ask her about something she said last night, I admitted. But it doesn't matter anymore. If you were really sorry for what you did, you wouldn't be alone with Billy right now. There's no hope for us, Ellie. Just sign the divorce papers and let's move on. Her sharp intake of breath was followed by a click as the line disconnected. A second later, I heard her scream and cry through the phone. I hung up, feeling no need to listen further. About an hour later, Sally called, her voice tight with anger. She accused me of making things worse for Ellie, saying that her sister was even more distraught after my call and needed help just to sleep. I explained that I hadn't meant to upset anyone. My intention had been to talk to Sally, but when Billy answered, I hung up. Ellie called back, and though I hadn't been ready to speak to her, our brief conversation left me wondering if there was still a chance for us. To ease the tension, I suggested meeting Sally for lunch. She reluctantly agreed, and we decided to meet at the mall. When she arrived, her natural beauty was evident. Soft makeup enhanced her features, her blonde hair was elegantly styled, and her freckles peeked through a light foundation. Despite this, her casual clothes felt mismatched with her polished appearance. I took her to a dress shop where she tried on several outfits. A gray dress with floral and black patterns was perfect, accentuating her figure while gracefully concealing the effects of having 5 children. I brought Sally to a nearby steakhouse, one that happened to be Ellie's favorite. As we sat, I noticed people admiring Sally, though she seemed unaware of the attention. I was glad to give her a brief escape from the burdens she carried daily. Over lunch, I asked her how she had managed to forgive both Billy and Ellie and move forward. Sally opened up about her conflicted emotions. She loved her sister deeply, but was consumed by anger over the betrayal. Her feelings toward Billy were even more complicated. She couldn't bear to see him again, and if she and Ellie salvaged their relationship, she vowed that he would no longer be part of their lives. Sally admitted that forgiving them had been far from easy. While she loved Ellie, she struggled with resentment, unable to fully let go of the pain. She confessed that she didn't understand why Ellie had done what she did, or if there had been others. Her voice softened as she wondered how I managed to cope with Billy's behavior and keep moving forward. As she spoke, the weight of her pain became evident. Tears shimmered in her eyes, mirroring my own, though we both pretended not to notice. Sally revealed that she wasn't as strong as I thought. Every time Billy cheated, it deeply hurt her. Even before the Maury episode, she had already resolved to take him back, regardless of whether the other woman was pregnant. But learning that Ellie had been involved broke her in ways she hadn't anticipated. She shared more about their past, explaining how their mother had died when they were young. Ellie was 7, and Sally was 9. Their father had been unfaithful for years, and Sally recalled frequently asking her mother where he was, only to hear that he was with another woman. After their mother's death, the two sisters essentially raised themselves, learning hard lessons about life and relationships. Sally admitted she was like her mother in some ways. Despite Billy's flaws, she continued to hope he would grow up and change, even though she wasn't sure that hope was realistic. Her faint smile didn't quite mask the sadness in her eyes, and the silence between us grew heavy with shared pain and unspoken questions. For a moment, we simply sat there, two people grappling with betrayal and trying to make sense of the lives we'd built around fragile hope. Sally insisted that Billy wasn't a bad or abusive man. He had never hurt her or the children physically, even in anger, but his inability to remain faithful was a constant source of pain. Despite his flaws, she struggled to let go of him. She saw his smile reflected in her children, and his presence was intertwined with her family's identity. She had promised to love him in good times and bad, and she felt bound to honor that vow, no matter how difficult. Her feelings toward Ellie were much more conflicted. She admitted that there were moments every day when she wanted to lash out at her sister, questioning how Ellie could betray her like that. Sally wouldn't have done the same to Ellie, even during her playful attempts to test Ted's loyalty. She knew Ted's love for Ellie was deep, and that love was what made his pain so overwhelming. Sally believed that time would eventually bring clarity. Either anger would consume him, leading to a divorce, or love would prevail, which would come with its own challenges due to the hurt and pride involved. She held out hope that the connection Ted and Ellie once shared might still survive. After lunch, I dropped Sally off near her car in time for her to pick up her children. I later learned that her return to the trailer park stirred trouble. When Sally walked in, Ellie immediately questioned her whereabouts, and Billy's jealousy flared. Sally revealed she had gone to lunch with me, mentioning the new outfit I had bought her for the occasion. Billy's irritation turned to criticism, claiming I should have spent the money on food for everyone instead. Sally, however, defended me, pointing out my consistent generosity toward their family and contrasting it with Billy's betrayal of my marriage. Sally confronted Billy about his actions, accusing him of repaying kindness with destruction. She reminded him of how much pain I was in and how his actions had irreparably damaged relationships. She warned him that he was no longer welcome at my home for swimming or watching sports, and emphasized that I was done with him. Billy, however, dismissed her anger with a nonchalant attitude, claiming his behavior was harmless. He framed his infidelity as trying different flavors, and even attempted to downplay Ellie's worth. Sally countered, asserting that Ted's love for Ellie was genuine, something she had always hoped her sister would have, a man who put her first. She expressed frustration with Ellie, saying that Ted's devotion was rare and Ellie had jeopardized everything by giving in to temptation. Ellie defended herself, but Sally told her she needed to accept that Ted might not come back. She reminded her sister that Ted had truly loved her, but had expected fidelity in return. Ellie admitted her regret, confessing that she missed Ted deeply and didn't know how to fix the situation. Sally, frustrated, asked why Ellie had been unfaithful if everything had been so good. Billy cruelly interrupted, mocking Ellie and implying that anyone could win her over as long as they met minimal standards. Billy then went on a tirade, belittling Ellie further. He threatened to tell Ted about other supposed affairs from their past, including alleged incidents involving a preacher and his boss. His words were intended to provoke, but they only highlighted his mean-spirited and bullying nature. The atmosphere in the trailer park became even tenser after this exchange, with relationships already frayed beyond repair. Sally's confrontation with Billy and Ellie underscored the deep rift between everyone involved, leaving little hope for reconciliation or peace. It was clear that the damage done could not easily be undone. "If you spill any of that nonsense, Billy, I swear I'll end you," Sally hissed. "I won't let you mess up my sister's life more than you already have. And you, Ellie, pack up, get in that car Ted bought you, drive to that gorgeous house of his, and wait for him. I'll talk to him for you, but that's all I'm willing to do." Billy sneered. "I bet she's having a blast with him, Ellie. That's why he's been buying her all those fancy clothes. Maybe they've been cozy since day one, and now that he knows about us, he's ditching your scrawny self for a real woman. No wonder when he calls, he doesn't want to talk to his wife or me, his so-called brother-in-law. All he wants is Sally." With a smirk, Billy added, "So, Sally, does Ted want just you or my kids too? Hell, are those even my kids? You dragged me to Maury's show for the whole world to see our dirty laundry, only to prove you're as bad as me. A cheater just like your sister. I thought I married a decent woman, but maybe I should call old Ted and see if he'll trade me some cash for you." The sharp click of Sally's heels on the trailer floor cut through the tension. She stormed over, her voice sharp. "Billy, you're an idiot. I've never cheated on you, not even with Ted. And Ted, he loved Ellie so much it hurt. He cried over her just like she cried over him." Turning to Ellie, Sally softened. "Ellie, you know Ted's pride won't let him take you back without a reason. He's stubborn, but he still loves you. When you married, you made promises, and breaking those wasn't just some casual mistake. For Ted, trust isn't entertainment. It's a bond. When you broke it, you broke him." Sally sighed, her tone shifting again. "The truth is, people aren't always what they seem. You thought you were deprived, so you ran off chasing every guy who glanced at you. But I envied you. I thought you had it all. Now you've heard what Billy thinks of you, and you've seen how Ted feels. He might still take you back, but you need to fight for him. Call him, beg if you have to, and let him take you far from here." Ellie stayed silent, guilt etched across her face. Sally pressed on, her voice firm but kind. "Ellie, I would never betray you like that. I'm not the kind of woman to sleep with your husband, and deep down you know that. Ted loves you too much to stray, and nothing happened between us today. We just talked about what it'd take for him to forgive you." Sally paused before continuing, her tone wistful. "You know what? Ted made me feel like a queen today. We went to the mall, he helped me pick out a dress, and he bought me shoes. It wasn't about the money. It was how much he cared about making me feel good about myself. Most women dream of that kind of love, Ellie, and you still have it. But you're throwing it all away for Billy and those deadbeat guys from the trailer park. Don't be that woman, the one who ends up alone, bitter, and forgotten." Her voice grew softer, almost pleading. "The one thing I can hold on to is that all my kids have the same father, and no matter how flawed Billy is, he loves me in his own way. If you lose Ted, what will you have left? Don't let this slip away, Ellie, and let me tell you one last thing. If you and Ted are really done, don't think I wouldn't go after him myself." Billy's obnoxious laughter echoed. "She can't leave," he scoffed. "She's just another cheap trailer park tramp. Every morning, like clockwork, I keep her entertained after you take the kids to school. Today, while you were out, she wasn't just with me. She hooked up with Tom and that smug mailman, too. She's insatiable. The crazy thing is, I believe she really loves Ted, but she's got needs that one guy can't meet. Sure, she's loyal when Ted's home, but the second he's gone, it's a free-for-all. And Ted? He's the kind of workaholic who'll keep grinding himself into the ground just to pay for all this. If she weren't on those heavy-duty birth control pills, who knows how many kids she'd have by now. Mine, Ted's, and probably half the neighborhoods. If you care about her so much, you might as well help her cover it all up. That way Ted can keep working for the rest of us." Billy's laughter rang out again, followed by the slam of the trailer door. "Tell me that bastard's lying, Ellie," Sally demanded. "You didn't hook up with him this morning, did you?" Ellie froze, then broke down sobbing. "I didn't think anyone would find out," she cried. "Ted hasn't even touched me since the show. I couldn't help it. Please don't tell him." I slumped into the leather seat of my Mustang, tears streaming down my face. I switched off the tiny receiver and unplugged it from the car's auxiliary input. By now, you've probably figured out that the lunch with Sally was a setup. Miniature recording devices had been sewn into the dress and shoes I bought her. I'd planned it all, hoping Sally would confront Ellie and force her to spill the truth. I wanted Ellie to admit what she felt about me and what she'd done. Buying clothes for her sister was just to stir up some jealousy. The dress, bugs, and lunch cost far less than hiring a private investigator. But my plan had backfired, leaving me more crushed than I'd felt even after that awful episode of Maury. I glanced at the woman sitting next to me at the bar, her mouth agape in shock. As I started to stand, she grabbed my arm. "Wait, you can't just leave. What happened next? You have to tell me how it ends." With a heavy sigh, I sat back down. "Lisa," I said slowly, "not every story has a neat ending. This isn't a book or some free internet drama. Sometimes you just have to keep moving until the hurt fades. But fine, I'll tell you what I did. I drove straight to the trailer park. It wasn't far. Those bugs don't work over long distances. I barged in, and as soon as Billy stood up, I stuck out my hand like I wanted to shake his. When he reached for it, I socked him hard in the jaw. He hit the ground. Then I kicked him, hard, right where it hurts most, and I kicked him again, just to be sure he'd stay down. Sally and Ellie were too stunned to even move. I walked to their cheap stereo, pulled a small pipe from my pocket, and hooked it up to the boom box. Their own voices started playing loud and clear. Billy was still writhing on the floor, groaning, while the sisters just sat there, frozen. I turned to Sally and said, "You're too good for this dump and the people in it. You and your kids deserve better. I'm offering you a way out, right now. Come with me, and we'll never look back." Sally shook her head silently, her face unreadable. Ellie, however, screamed in desperation as I turned to leave. "What about me, Ted? I love you. I'll change. Please don't leave me. Don't divorce me. We can fix this. I'll never let anyone come between us again, not even my sister." I stopped and looked at her, my voice heavy with sadness. "Ellie, the worst part is that I still love you, despite everything I just heard on that tape. But I hate you too, for the way you betrayed me. Sally was right. You don't know what you have until it's gone. The difference is you knew. You had a husband who adored you, who was faithful, who would have done anything to make you happy. I say had because I'm done. I'm gone, Ellie, and I'm not coming back." Sally made me realize something too late. I didn't know what I had until it was ripped away. I thought I had a wife who loved me and only me. I thought we had a love that would last a lifetime. But none of that was true, was it? It only took one moment, one tape, to destroy it all. I won't waste time telling you what I think you are. I'll just say this. You're gone forever. Even if the pain fades, even if I realize I still love you, it won't matter. Because trust is gone, and without trust, there's no marriage. But don't worry about the divorce. I paused, watching their faces. Relief flickered across them, foolishly thinking I'd changed my mind. Then I let a cold smile stretch across my face and continued. I refused to give her the satisfaction of a divorce. Instead, I opted for a classic no-strings-attached departure, packing up and starting over elsewhere. Eventually, I knew I'd meet someone new and fall in love again, but marriage was off the table. Thanks to her, I'd lost trust in women altogether. Honestly, this way was better. A divorce would mean legal entitlements, splitting assets, alimony, property rights. By simply walking out, she'd get nothing. The house? It was in my name. All she'd be left with was the memory of me leaving her in the dust. I walked out of the trailer, climbed into my Mustang, and drove off. Almost immediately, Sally started blowing up my phone, telling me she suspected Ellie was just as hooked on chaos as Billy and suggesting treatment might help. I told her it didn't matter anymore. I had no interest in a wife who needed lessons on respecting marriage or keeping her affairs in check. In the days that followed, Ellie wouldn't leave me alone. She harassed me at work, tracked me to my home, and ignored every attempt to create boundaries, even a restraining order. One humiliating scene involved her clutching my leg as police tried to drag her away. That was the final straw. I realized the only way to escape her was to leave town entirely, so I quit my job and began arranging for a fresh start elsewhere. Before leaving, though, I couldn't resist tying up some loose ends in my own way. First stop, the post office. With my attorney in tow, I presented evidence to the postmaster. His face turned white when we mentioned potential legal trouble, though we both knew suing a federal agency wasn't an option. Small-town postmasters, however, don't always see it that way. He called the implicated employee, Ed, and promptly fired him on the spot. To keep things quiet, he also handed me a settlement check. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to give me a head start. I accepted. As I left, I spotted Ed sobbing near his locker. I gave him a pitying pat on the shoulder, snagged his wallet, and visited his apartment to deliver the tape to his disgruntled wife. She requested a copy, so I figured Ed's days of marriage were numbered. That left Tom. He took pride in owning one of the park's nicest trailers, complete with wheels, unlike most others. I didn't need a lawyer for this bit of mischief. Driving up the hill to his trailer, I attached a roller to the hitch and removed all the stabilizing bricks and wedges, keeping it stationary. A gentle push sent the trailer rolling downhill. Gravity did the rest, propelling it straight into the lake. At first, no one noticed. When they did, the laughter erupted. It turned out Tom wasn't particularly popular. By the time his trailer sank, neighbors had gathered for the show, some even grilling hot dogs to celebrate. Tom arrived out of breath, cursing and threatening anyone within earshot. Someone tried to console him, joking about insurance. But Tom didn't have any. I took him aside, delivering a swift punch to his gut. "That's for Ellie," I said, leaving him doubled over. With my revenge complete, nothing tethered me to this place anymore. I sold everything I could, houses, possessions, and anything of value. What I couldn't sell, I destroyed, including Ellie's belongings. Before leaving, I gave Sally a modest sum for emergencies and an anonymous email address to stay in touch. I never looked back. Moving from town to town, I kept a low profile, ensuring Ellie couldn't track me down. With the wealth from liquidating my assets and my engineering skills, finding work was never an issue. I rolled my retirement funds into a self-directed IRA and kept my finances stable. Maybe one day, when the wounds Ellie inflicted finally heal, I'll settle down with someone new. But for now, I keep moving forward, leaving the past behind. Every so often, Sally reaches out to me, and just hearing Ellie's name stirs up a dull ache in my chest. As it stands now, Billy is entirely reliant on Sally. He doesn't have much choice. After my well-placed kicks left him with lasting issues in the bedroom and his ongoing unemployment, he's got no other options. Sally says Ellie still holds on to feelings for me and wants me back. She even appeared on Maury again, claiming she was pregnant and needed to identify the father. The truth? She wasn't pregnant at all. She just wanted the show's resources to help track me down. She's not after money or anything material. Apparently, she just wants me back in her life. I've made it a point to stay well off the grid because shows like that can be relentless, employing private investigators and other tools to uncover someone's location. For now, I prefer to keep my whereabouts a mystery. Occasionally, I'll spend time with a woman for a few days or weeks, but no one has managed to fill the space Ellie left behind. As much as I hate to admit it, I'll probably carry a piece of love for that wild, red-headed trailer park girl until the day I die. But loving her doesn't mean I can live with her. So here I am, just me and my Mustang, moving from town to town, seeing America one stop at a time. Even now, a year later, every time I spot a thin redhead, it stirs something in me. A tear might fall, a sharp reminder that she still lingers in the corners of my mind. But I know her too well. By now, she's likely been through the trailer park and most of the town. I get it. You probably wanted some tidy, happy ending. But life doesn't always wrap up neatly. In fact, this isn't an ending at all. If you want closure, feel free to write it yourself. Lisa tossed her head back, finishing her drink with a confident air. She was striking, with dark hair cascading down her shoulders and piercing blue eyes. "You're not quite what I expected," she said with a smirk. "But you'll do." Reaching into her purse, she pulled out a phone, a badge, and, surprisingly, a small Colt. She dialed a number, and as she spoke, I couldn't help but glance at the badge. Not a cop, I realized, but a private investigator. "This is Lisa," she said into the phone. "No luck here either. Nothing in this town matches. There's a guy driving a Mustang, but it's not the right make or year, and he's way too old. Look, Marty, I'm done. I don't want to spend my life hunting down other people's lost spouses. I've decided it's time to focus on my own life. Tell the redhead and the show that this guy's not coming back. She's wasting everyone's time and money." With that, Lisa placed the phone, badge, and tool on the bar. She turned to me with a playful smile. So, how about we take a closer look at that Mustang of yours? I grinned and nodded, leading her toward the door. 6 weeks later, I realized I was in deeper than I'd expected. Since the night Lisa and I left that bar, I hadn't thought about Ellie, not once. One morning, while Lisa was stepping out of the shower, I told her about it. She paused, her dark hair glistening, and smiled softly. Maybe you don't have the ending to Ellie's story because it already happened, she said, sitting beside me. That chapter closed when you left Maury. Your marriage ended, and everything since then was just an afterword. You weren't searching for the end of your story with Ellie. You were looking for the beginning of something else, the start of our story. She rested her hand on mine, her voice steady and sure. This is the story of us, of you and me, building a life and a family together, and it's one that'll last the rest of our lives.